and then on top of that, like moving and settling there, it's just, it's been difficult to stay active at the same time.
Could be worse. Two parents of Jamie's best school friend moved to Dubai last summer, teachers.
Right.
So they're teaching in some private school in Dubai, and they're now like in a flat.
They're stuck there.
Shelter.
And we want to stop these wars. We definitely need to stop Trump's wars, and we need Starmer to stop going along with his US being a puppet of the US and going along with everything that Donald Trump says. The lies this afternoon trying to make out that it's a defensive strategy when he's actually saying that the British bases can be used to set for the US to attack Iran. That's not defensive, that's actually part of the aggressive war against Iran. So that's what we're here for today, to stand up for those things. We've got a number of speakers here tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to start us off with Kath Davis. Kath Davis is the recently elected Central Executive Committee member for the new Your Party and representing the North East. So please give a hand for Kath Davis. Kath.
Can you hear me? Sorry. Together with all of you, I'm appalled at the unprovoked attack on Iran by the United States and Israel. This is an act of aggression and it endangers us all. This is yet another illegal US military intervention in an oil-rich country for which there is no justification. Killing a head of state whose country you were negotiating with only 12 hours before, and bombing a girls' school, killing 153 people, including children. Keir Starmer has said he will not join the offensive action, but he is willing to let American forces use British air bases and hasn't condemned the strikes. Rolling over to Trump, even though he knows that the US are breaking international law again. But this is nothing new from him. God forbid he grew a backbone and called it out for what it is, like Spain has. We have all been here before. We were told Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria and Gaza were all threats to world peace, while the president of peace in the last year has bombed Venezuela, Nigeria, Somalia, Yemen, Syria and Iraq, and now Iran, as well as aiding and abetting the genocide in Palestine. Sorry, just there. This war risks spreading across the region and beyond, with a potentially devastating loss of life and a wider threat to world peace. The architects of war, the ruling classes, billionaires, arms manufacturers and oil corporations don't care what happens to people they kill, maim or displace. They aren't the ones feeling the pain. It's ordinary people who have to bear the consequences. Whether it be higher fuel prices, wage controls, squeezes on public services, or blaming migrants who have actually been made migrants by the Western powers. This is why we have to stand up to be counted. We have to say no to war. No more, we say, no more war, no more war. Let's stop the war. Thank you.
Thank you, Kath. That's fantastic. No more war, 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 no more war. It's quite ironic, isn't it, as Kath pointed out, the way this will affect our living standards, where we have the Prime Minister has been barking on in the last couple of weeks about taking action to solve the cost of living crisis, and here he is taking part in an action that will actually exacerbate the cost of living crisis, which is absolutely scandalous and disgraceful. So I'm going to go on to our next speaker. A number of trade unions have signed a statement opposing the war, so I'm really pleased that we have Martin Levy, who's President of Newcastle Trades Council, to come and talk about the trade unions' opposition to war. Thank you. Martin Levy.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you all for coming tonight. The attack by Israel and the US on Iran was unprovoked, outrageous and criminal. The US never had any intention of reaching agreement by diplomatic means. An Israeli defense official admitted that the operation had been planned for months and the launch date had been set weeks ago. Nuclear was never a genuine issue. In 2015, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action was concluded between Iran, the US and the other major powers. The International Atomic Energy Agency repeatedly confirmed that Iran was complying with the agreement, but Trump tore it up in 2018. And since then, Washington has pursued a policy of maximum pressure on Iran to deny even low-level uranium enrichment for civilian use. Israel opposed the 2015 nuclear agreement and even addressed the US Congress to block it. Trump claimed that Iran was preparing to attack the US, so he had to launch a preemptive war. That's a lie. Yesterday, Pentagon briefers acknowledged to congressional staff that Iran was not planning to strike US forces or bases in the Middle East unless Israel attacked Iran first. Ordinary working people, and not just in Iran or Israel, will suffer from this war. At least 150 people killed, as we just heard, in the missile attack on a girls' school in southern Iran. It's a war crime. It's not front page news here, but it would be if it was in Israel. Yeah. Israel's been bombing banks in Lebanon. There have been US false flag operations against a hotel in Riyadh and Saudi Arabian oil fields, an attempt to draw Saudi Arabia into a war against Iran. The US and Israel want a regional war for oil. Oil prices are rising, and that will hurt working people across the world, while corporations make massive profits. Now, the trade union movement is not usually fast to respond, but yesterday, several trade union leaders issued a very important statement, which I want to read to you. Statement against the illegal war in Iran. We condemn an illegal war in Iran and the abandonment of diplomatic talks by the United States under pressure from Israel. Reports of Iranian civilian casualties, including students and school children, are deeply disturbing and require urgent independent investigation. We oppose any attacks on civilians and stand against all unlawful wars. We fear that for an attack on Iran will have devastating global consequences, from regional instability to surging oil prices that will hurt working people everywhere. We oppose any direct or indirect participation by the UK in this conflict and call for an immediate return to diplomacy. And is signed by the General Secretaries of TSSA, RMT, PCS, Bakers Union, Equity, UCU, my own union, the NEU, Fire Brigades Union, Aegis, SIF, the Prison Officers Association, and also Dwayne Little, General Secretary of the General Federation of Trade Unions. Where are our leaders on this issue? They're refusing to say whether the US Israeli attack was legally justified, and now allowing British military bases to be used by the US to attack Iran. 6 years ago, when Starmer was campaigning to become leader of the Labour Party, he issued 10 pledges, which you might remember. The fourth pledge was to promote peace and human rights, no more illegal wars, review all UK arms sales and make us a force for international peace and justice. He's spineless. Spain's government has said no to US using its bases on its territory. What we're seeing is gangster imperialism, kidnapping of Venezuela's president and his wife because of the oil industry there, which the US now controls, a blockade against oil going to Cuba in order to create so much unrest that the socialist government is overthrown, they hope. Trump and co have been emboldened, and now the attack on Iran. At the recent Munich Security Conference on February the 14th, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio outlined a new colonialism. He said for 5 centuries before the end of the Second World War, the West had been expanding. Its missionaries, pilgrims, its soldiers, its explorers, building vast empires, extending out across the globe. He didn't mention the enslavement of around 20 million African people. There was no mention of Nazism, fascism, and genocide in the Second World War. He complained that the great Western empires had entered into terminal decline, accelerated by godless communist revolutions and by anti-colonial uprisings that would transform the world and drape the red hammer and sickle across vast swathes of the map for years to come. But he said, decline was a choice our predecessors refused to make. This is a call for re-establishing colonialism, and we must have nothing to do with it. We must put pressure on our government to stop its support for the US and Israel, but we need to build an anti-imperialist alliance, and trade unions must be at the heart of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Our next speaker, one of the sickest things that actually happened when the attacks occurred on, was it yesterday, Saturday morning, wasn't it, Saturday morning, was that Donald Trump and Keir Starmer and all these leaders talk about protecting people and caring for people, and yet some of the first people to be murdered by Donald Trump in this attack were school children, schoolgirls at school in Iran. Nearly over 150 people were killed in that attack, including up to 100 schoolgirls. So when they talk about caring for women and caring for people, it's just clearly nonsensical. It's not an attack on just the regime. It's an attack that's an indiscriminatory attack, an unprovoked attack that kills citizens as well. So I'm really pleased, actually, given that children were the first casualties of this war, that our next speaker is the regional chair of the Regional Council of the National Education Union. Please put your hands together for Sean Kelly. Sean.
Thank you. Good evening. Yes, I bring greetings from the National Education Union, a union 500,000 strong now, growing all the time, and the National Education Union has taken the position that we are completely opposed to the bombing of Iran. Democracy cannot be brought about through bombs. Now, some people might ask, why is the biggest education union in Europe taking a position on this? Is it not the role of the education unions just to deal with things in schools? Well, we are taking a line on this because as educators of children and young people, we recognise that the first act of this far-right Trump government was to drop bombs onto a girls' school in Iran. At least 165 people now we know have been killed in that bombing, and that includes a majority of them young schoolgirls. Killed in an airstrike on that primary school. State media have reported that the girls' elementary school in Minab, southern Iran, was destroyed in an attack on Saturday during a joint US and Israeli bombing campaign. Now, this is a carbon copy of what we've seen in Gaza over the past few years. There are no schools in Gaza now. No schools are left. Is that what we want to see in Iran as well? All the schools are destroyed. The limbs and the carcasses of children are scattered around and buried underneath the rubble in Gaza. Is that what we want to see in Iran? Trump, we know, is a rapist, but we also know now he's a child killer. And the Prime Minister of this country, Slimy Starmer, is diving further into the gutter with his support for these depravities. Keir Starmer has given US permission to use UK military bases to actually strike and bomb Iran. I want to read out the NEU's official statement. It states, we unequivocally condemn the military strikes on Iran that have killed hundreds of civilians, including more than 100 children, many of them at a girls' school. The loss of young lives in this way is indefensible. No political objectives can justify the killing of children or the devastation of communities. These attacks form part of a continuing pattern of actions by the USA and Israel that contravene international humanitarian law. We call on the UK government to oppose these actions. We call on the government to press for de-escalation and to actually uphold international law. We stand in solidarity, not with the leaders of Iran, but with the people of Iran, with those who seek justice, dignity and democratic rights, in complete opposition to external military intervention. For many years now, the National Education Union has condemned Iran's denial of trade union rights. We have spoken out against the repression of women and girls. We have consistently campaigned against the wider human rights abuses inflicted by the leaders on the Iranian people. Our position is rooted in principle. Change must come, but change must come from within. It must reflect the will of the Iranian people themselves, and it cannot be imposed by American bombs. Nor can foreign powers determine Iran's political future. Lasting freedom is built by people. It's not delivered through the dropping of bombs. Now, you might wonder who's happy about all of this, but there are some people who are cheering and delighted tonight. The super rich. The super rich are absolutely delighted. And why is this? Because they're making money out of this war and this death. They're counting profits from online bets that paid off just as the limbs of little girls were being torn apart and blood splashed onto their classroom walls. Now, I don't tend to read the Telegraph, but they have reported a US senator has accused those close to Donald Trump of profiting from war and death in the wake of suspiciously timed bets predicting a US strike on Iran. Chris Murphy, a US senator for Connecticut, said he would launch a crackdown on so-called prediction markets after analysts raised concerns about bets on Polymarket. Bubble Maps, a cryptocurrency analytics company, identified what it said were 6 suspected insiders close to Trump who made $1.2 million betting on the US strike on Iran. And Mr. Murphy responded by saying, "It is insane that this is legal. People around Trump are profiting from war and death, and I'm going to introduce legislation to ban this." Now we might ask, what can we do? How can we stop it? And I think the first thing we need to say is, our enemy is close by. Our enemy is in this country. Our enemy, our main enemy, is at home. The super rich in this country, the arms companies in this country, the politicians in this country who support and enable these people. Every trade unionist needs to fight against austerity and against cuts in services. The same people who are supporting these attacks are doing those cuts. We need to fight to have resources, more resources spent on teaching assistants in schools, more healthcare workers in hospitals, and more guards on our trains. Not on weapons and bombs to drop on schools in Iran or anywhere else in the world for that case. Trump, Netanyahu and Starmer are war criminals, and they should now be standing behind bulletproof glass in The Hague, charged with crimes against humanity. We need mass civil disobedience, strikes, demonstrations. We need to bring the system of profit-making for the super rich to a standstill. We must build the demonstrations against all of their attacks, whether they are attacks on public services or attacks on girls' schools in Iran. We stand in defiance of that. We stand with the Iranian working class. They are a part of us, and we're a part of them. Let's make this country ungovernable by thugs like Starmer, and let's stop the bombing right now.
Fantastic, Sean. Don't attack Iran! 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 Thank you, Sean. Fantastic to hear from an educator. We need to educate people, young people, about what's going on in the world. So I'm really, really pleased that our next speaker is also an educator. It's Marika Asghari from the University and College Union. Please put your hands together for Marika.
Thank you very much. Israel and US's war of aggression on Iran began only 2 days ago. And so far, a hospital and a primary school have been bombed, killing more than 100 small children and more civilians. We've heard from mainstream Western media repeatedly that this is a war against the Iranian regime. But that is false. This war is against Iran. What we think of Iran's government is irrelevant here, because it is the Iranian people who are being killed and traumatized by the constant bombing, and it is the Iranian assets that are being destroyed. And before the war began, it was Iranian economy and livelihood that was under attack by US-led and Western-backed sanctions. Let's not forget about these facts. Also, let's not forget that Israel and USA started this war in the middle of negotiations over Iran's nuclear program, much like they did in June last year. So we have 2 states with nuclear weapons, including the only one in the world who has ever used a nuclear weapon against another, attacking Iran, who doesn't have nuclear weapons, under the pretext that they might acquire it in the future. Is that not madness? I am from Iran. I have family and friends there, including in Tehran, that has been heavily targeted. I've had very limited contact with them. Yesterday afternoon was the last I heard from them. On Saturday, I had contact with a close friend who told me that she's not going to leave Tehran because her brother had an emergency medical situation that needed immediate treatment. And yesterday, one of the areas that was bombed in Tehran is where this friend lives. I've had no contact with her since then. I have no idea how she's doing or if she's even alive. I'm telling this not for your pity, but to give you a human example of the extent to which this war impacts people's lives. Now I want to address the other pretext for this war: regime change to liberate the Iranian people. The current approach of airstrikes on strategic locations and the killing of top military and political figures in Iran will only weaken the government, but is very unlikely to bring regime change. What does a weak government mean for its people? It's one that lashes out and is more dangerous, like we saw earlier this year with the massacre of thousands of protesters. But what does it mean for the architects of this war? It means less competition and a clearer path to regional domination. Let's not forget that Israel is already using this opportunity to attack Lebanon, killing more than 30 people and displacing many others. Also, let us not forget that the latest protests in Iran began because of the dire economic situation and the hyperinflation in Iran, which was a direct result of the intense sanctions that were imposed on Iran by US and its allies. Now let's assume that somehow Iran's government will collapse because of this war. What do we think will follow? I'm a scientist, so I believe we should rely on evidence and our prior knowledge to understand the present and predict the future. Look at Iran's left and look at Iran's right on a map. You've got Afghanistan and Iraq, and we all know how these regime change adventures continue the suffering of the people there. Where regime change became state collapse, civil war, and ultimately these countries that were not perfect to start with, but were safe, became incredibly destabilized and more radicalized and fanatical, at least in the case of Afghanistan. So to those who hail this war as liberation, I say just look a little in the past and a little away geographically. Why do you think it will be any different in Iran? Is it not wishful thinking to believe that this time it is different? Don't we know that the warmongers are not in any way after democracy and liberation? What evidence we have that points to these values? What are US and Israel's track records? Let's not blindly support them in the hopes of returning to a past that nostalgia has painted as perfectly rosy for us. After all, if it was such a brilliant system before the revolution, why did the revolution happen in the first place? And finally, I want to address UK's involvement. Starmer announced that UK was not consulted or included in the beginning of this war. Then why is it involved now? If these so-called allies don't even provide the simple courtesy of letting UK know, why is UK clambering so hard to get involved? What benefit does it provide its citizens? Is it because of nostalgia again? Nostalgia of a powerful imperial UK that it wants to get in with the action? Or is UK just a yes man? US says jump and UK asks how high? Either way, it is pathetic. And what is the impact of this war on UK citizens? For people like me, it is a throbbing headache, anxiety, and grief. But even for those who have no stakes in this, it means another spike in energy costs, which we saw how it impacted people's lives a few years ago, and its ripple still continues. In all this, let's not forget who gains the most in this lethal game: arms companies and the Zionist expansionists. But what can we do? As people and unions, we can put pressure on our governments to stop supporting this war and actively oppose it. Within our Newcastle branch, we have 2 formal motions in support of Iran and its people, which were passed with close to 100%. 12 union general secretaries, as you earlier, signed a letter condemning this illegal war on Iran and demanded that UK stops its participation in any form. Activists are doing what they can to put more pressure on the UK government. Small acts of solidarity add up to make a large wave. Every drop counts in its creation and fuels its momentum. The people united will never be defeated.
Many thanks, Marika, thank you. It's very, very important that our trade unions, who represent millions of workers in this country, are opposing these wars. And if you are in a trade union, please do go to your branch meetings and get them affiliated to Stop the War Coalition. And if you're not individually a member, you can join the Stop the War Coalition at the stall here. Leave your contact details on the sign-up sheet there. And there's also a few placards around still if people want to hold up a placard. But yeah, please do get involved with Stop the War Coalition. We've been opposing war for 20 odd years and we obviously need to continue to do so. Our next speaker, please make a big hand for Molly Storm from the Revolutionary Communist Party. Molly.
Hi everyone. Oh well. My name is Molly and I'm here from the Revolutionary Communist Party. As we know, this weekend the US attacked a sovereign nation unprovoked for the second time in 2026. It's also the second time in under 9 months that the USA has attacked Iran with missiles, drones, and with Israeli support. The reason for this attack could be a number of things. They want regime change. They want to secure the dominance of the US and Israel in the Middle East. They want access to oil reserves. They want to stop the development of a legal nuclear program, increase regional control on Israel's whims, and they want to distract from the unrest in the USA itself. Or it could be another blatant attempt to distract from the Epstein files. It could be, of course, a combination of all of these things, but these reasons all boil down to the same thing. This flagrant attack, this clear act of war, is for one purpose: to keep the imperialists in power, to maintain their dominance, and to stay in power and make sure that the working class are sent to fight other working classes, so that they can't fight their own oppressors. To stay in power and control a worldwide system that is ripe for revolution, that is sick and tired, angry, and increasingly impossible conditions that they have to survive in. My friends' children, some of them are now the same age that I was when my dad was sent to fight in Iraq. The working class make up a disproportionately large portion of our military. If we let the ruling class drag us into another war like that, so many of them will never see their parents, their siblings, or their friends. They'll never come home. And it's not the ruling class that pays the price, it's us. Every single time, they make money on war and we bury what's left of our dead. Maduro and his wife are still imprisoned in New York following the USA's attack on Venezuela. And the US is doing everything it can to bring Cuba to its knees with the forced embargo on oil and tariffs on countries that are selling oil to Cuba. It's caused mass destabilization in the country and caused chaos for the people there. And just days ago, a USA-flagged small boat fired upon Cuban soldiers. Trump has since suggested a friendly takeover of Cuba alongside controlling Venezuela. We cannot allow USA and Israeli imperialism to decimate more and more countries, to plunge more and more workers into disaster and chaos. If we want to highlight the regime that has been responsible for wars, upheavals, death and destruction on a global scale over the past decades, we must look not at Iran, but at the United States of America. For specifically terrorist action, wars and upheavals in the Middle East, then we can look to USA's proxy, Israel. This in no way implies support for the regime in Tehran, but the task of dealing with this regime is the task of the Iranian people, and the Iranian people alone. Under no circumstances can they look to US imperialism to solve this problem for them. It simply isn't going to work. Above all, we stand against revolutionary imperialist wars and for the unity of all the toiling people against the real enemy. The real enemy is a predatory imperialism, and it is the capitalist system that lies behind it. We support the Iranian people's struggle to overthrow their own government, but that is the right of them, people alone. We know that America's cries of liberation, democracy and freedom for women are empty lies to excuse their attempts to maintain their economic and political domination. We as a working class cannot allow this terrorism to continue. We cannot sit idly by while they do whatever they please. Strikes, as we've learned, are the economic power of the working class. We stand for the unconditional defense of Iran against the aggressive acts of American imperialism and its Israeli proxies. We condemn our own government's complicity in these crimes. Keir Starmer continues to sell weapons to Israel, and he has offered America the use of British military bases across the Middle East to assist in this murderous campaign. We say down with imperialism, down with Zionism, and end their path of destruction.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you. Yes, we need to stand against our own governments and criticise our... It's a sad irony, isn't it, that it's a Labour government taking us to war again. It was a Labour government that took us to war back in 2003 when Tony Blair lied and took us into the Iraq war. But there are alternatives. And interesting, only last Wednesday, the Green Party struck a victory against Labour and against Reform, against the Islamophobes and the racists of Reform. So really, really pleased that we have a speaker from the Green Party, Newcastle Green Party, here this evening, Halima Begum from the Newcastle Green Party. Please give her a big hand. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Halima. I'm a Geordie lass from the West End. That's my introduction for you. I'm also here to represent the Green Party. I stand here today because we no longer can remain silent in the face of selective morality.
Halima.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go again.
So we can no longer remain silent in the face of selective morality. We are told by the US and Israeli administration that the strikes we've seen in Iran over the last 48 hours, Operation Epic Fury, are about human rights and liberation. Just listen to that, human rights and liberation. But as we stand here at the monument, we have to ask a very direct question: whose human rights? It is a massive and heartbreaking hypocrisy to claim you are saving the people of Iran while you are bombarding schools, killing 140 innocent children and hospitals, and simultaneously the 2,000-pound bombs that have leveled Gaza. You cannot claim to be champion of freedom when you are facilitating what the United Nations Commission of Inquiry has officially termed genocide in Palestine. What are we witnessing is not a rescue mission. It is a power grab. While the world's eyes are on Tehran, we see the ongoing attempts to clear Palestinian land for illegal settlements. We see the selective application of international law, where one nation is protected while faces plausible genocide in charges at the ICJ, another is invaded based on suspicions without a single piece of nuclear evidence. There's no evidence. The Green Party stands for consistent ethic of peace. We call for an immediate end to UK complicity. We call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and the end of illegal invasion of Iran. We do not want greater Israel or global empire. We want a world where the life of a child in Gaza is valued, the same as a child in Tehran or a child right here in Newcastle. Justice cannot be selective. If it's not for everyone, it isn't for anyone. Thank you.
Many thanks, Halima. Thanks for coming down at such short notice. I know it was a struggle this afternoon. And please bring a hand over straight away to Pam Wortley, Vice Chair of Newcastle Stop the War Coalition.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming and staying tonight as it gets colder. The Stop the War Coalition, I'm sure you all know, is committed to preventing and ending all wars. We condemn the reckless and deadly US and Israeli attacks on Iran, supposedly to prevent Iran's nuclear weapons development, or is it regime change? This unprovoked act of aggression risks escalation into a regional conflict and raises the spectre of nuclear confrontation. Yet another illegal US military intervention in an oil-rich nation. No approval from the United Nations, no approval even from Congress. For decades, the US and Israel have rejected peaceful solutions to Iran's nuclear program. Yet Israel possesses nuclear weapons and refuses to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Netanyahu's repeated claim that Iran is a week away from making a nuclear bomb has never materialized. Trump's shredding of the Iran nuclear deal in 2018, which had successfully limited Iran's nuclear activity, has escalated tensions. Coordinated US-Israeli strikes during last June's negotiations shows that the US could not be trusted. Trump then claimed to have obliterated Iran's nuclear capabilities, saying it would take years to restore. But here we are again. The Omani foreign minister mediating the recent talks condemned the attacks. A peace agreement within reach was deliberately sabotaged, a clear indication that an indicted Israeli Prime Minister mired in genocide in Gaza and an Epstein-compromised US president named 38,000 times in the Epstein files are dangerously out of control, pushing the world towards global economic meltdown and conflict as Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz, through which a third of the world's gas and a quarter of its oils pass. Why can't we see it? I just don't get it, do you? The self-styled US peace president launched military operations in 9 countries over the past year, while Israel attacked 7 countries and committed genocide in Gaza with UK support and complicity. Yet Western leaders present themselves as champions of peace. Starmer's response is that Iran should return to the negotiating table. They're already at the table, for God's sake. Stop the War demands that the UK government oppose these illegal attacks on Iran, refuse to participate in military action and suspend arms sales. All peoples of the world should be in control of their own futures. The history of the last 25 years is strewn with examples of supposedly bringing peace and democracy at the end of an American missile. Stop the War was right when we led millions in opposition to the illegal US-led regime change interventions in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria and Libya, failed catastrophes ending in US defeat. Promises of freedom and humanitarian intervention ring hollow against this history. Trump's wars, Starmer's appeasement, the militarization of Europe and increasing global instability show how important it is for Stop the War's campaign to end the push towards militarism and global conflict. The doomsday clock is set 85 seconds from midnight, the closest it has ever been. To turn it back, we must address the threats facing the world. So, join Stop the War coalition and say no to war, not in our name.
Thank you, pal. No more war, not in our name. One of the slogans on our banner that's been there for over 20 years now is Stop Islamophobia. When the Iraq war was being brought about, we always argued that it would lead to an increase in Islamophobia and racism, and we've seen that going on for 20 odd years now, and more recently with the rise of reform and their attacks on refugees and migrants, ramping up Islamophobia and racism once more. So I'm really pleased that our next speaker is Jeff Aber, who's here from Stand Up to Racism North East to talk about how we challenge racism. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony, and what fantastic protest we have here. Trump's initial address informing the world that military action had started, and what he claimed was this was an attack to liberate the people of Iran. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's about power, resources and geopolitical domination. And the lie of a nuclear threat is a pretext by a criminal regime, just as the lie of weapons of mass destruction was used to destroy Iraq and kill over 1 million people. Let's remember that, over 1 million people. And this action could actually spill over into a much wider conflagration, right across the Middle East and even possibly across the world. And Keir Starmer has allowed Trump to attack Iran from British bases, defensively, as he puts it. But actually, this will mean more atrocities, just like the bombing of the school that Sean from the NEU described previously. And this is what happens. Ordinary people will pay the price, either through bombs, through sanctions, through hunger and displacement. And there will be refugees, because there have been refugees, or from all of the imperial wars that we've seen in the past few years. And what we're seeing is an increase in that, and an increase in refugees, and refugees are actually now being blamed by the far right for all of our problems, when all they're doing is they're trying to get sanctuary from war and aggression, hunger, and all of those other things. So what we say quite clearly is refugees are welcome here. All those Iranian refugees that might have to come here, they will be welcome, and they have a right to be here. So in this context, there will be a massive mobilisation on March the 28th. We're going to march together in London against the far right, and the message is one of love, hope and unity. And we can fight the lies of Trump, Farage, all of those people, Tommy Robinson. And it's actually International Women's Day this weekend, and every weekend, every Saturday, we line up outside the refugee hotel to defend that hotel against the far right. They're turning up every single week, and what they do is they use the lie that refugees and asylum seekers are a threat to women and girls in this country. And I'll tell you what, they're not the threat. The threat comes from the far right. It comes from Trump. It comes from Nigel Farage. Refugees are not mentioned in the Epstein files. They're not mentioned. So the threat doesn't come from people in rubber dinghies. It comes from those people like Trump, like Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, like Nigel Farage, who's mentioned 12 times in the Epstein files, and even Tommy Robinson, he's in the Epstein files. It's those people, rich white men, who travel in executive jets, who are the real danger to women and girls in this country. And we should say that very, very clearly. So we need to welcome refugees. We need to see this attack on Iran as being an attack on ordinary people. And what we say is we demand an immediate end to the war on Iran, and the British government must not participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. It's quite ironic that the people that protest down there at the hotel every week, telling that they want to stop the boats, they're supporters of reform, and we've seen Nigel Farage this last couple of days supporting the war against Iran, supporting bombing Iran, which will actually create more refugees and bring more people over here in bombs than they've had before. So it's a quite ironic and stupid thing for him to be encouraging a war that brings people over here when they don't want them to come in the first place. I'm really pleased that as we get towards the end of the evening, there's no need to shout, really. Just no need to shout. They can just come and take over here when we're finished and say what they want to say. Anyway, really pleased that got a couple of more speakers before we can retire and go home for our tea. Really pleased to have the councillor, independent councillor for this ward, the Monument Ward, Jane Byrne, here this evening. She's just rushed down here from work this evening, so really pleased that she had time to get here. Thank you.
Thank you. What's happened in the Middle East, not just over the last 20 years, the last few months, but over the last 100 years, has been the destruction of people for oil. It's all about oil, it's all about resources. The overthrow of the Iranian democratic president in the 1950s was about oil, it was about control, because he dared to nationalise the oil. The enemy is capitalism, it always has been, it always will be. It tries to set us against each other, it tries to set us against people from different nations, it tries to set communities against each other. What we're seeing now, when we see that the way that Trump is behaving, is just the naked aggression of America. But America has always behaved in that way. It has always sought to maximise its own interests, well, not all Americans, obviously, the interests of the ruling class in America against ordinary people, against its own people who it is shooting in America if they stand up against ICE, and among people throughout the world. It is an absolute shame and a disgrace that the Labour Party has yet again agreed to support an illegal war. There are many things that you could criticise the Labour Party for over its history, but it is the People's Party, and for it to knowingly send people to their death again is so wrong. But we can speak out, we can show that that is not what Britain is about, that is not what Newcastle is about. So stick up for everybody, stand up for what you believe, stay together, come to the hotel on Saturdays and show that refugees are welcome here. Reach out to your communities, don't be divided. We are better than this, we will be better than this. Free the people of Iran, free Kurdistan and free all of us. Thank you.
Say it loud, say it clear.
Refugees are welcome here.
Say it loud and say it clear.
Refugees are welcome here.
Say it loud, say it clear.
Refugees are welcome here.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for all of our speakers. Our final speaker this evening is Roger Nettleship. He's from South Tyneside Stop the War Coalition. Please give him a big hand. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony, and thanks to everyone for coming. Just like to say that we're here again. A few weeks ago we were here to oppose the kidnapping of Maduro at Venezuela, and we've been here, of course, over the last 2 years supporting the Palestinian people against the genocide. But tonight we come to condemn the US-Israeli Zionist aggression launched on February 28th. And we send our deepest sympathies to the people of Iran for the loss of their people and the loss of their leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, who along with his family members was assassinated in the attack on Tehran and other cities. In the Muslim world, this is tantamount to assassinating the Pope in Rome or the Archbishop of Canterbury. And we express our deepest sympathies with the families of all those killed, and including, as the speakers have mentioned, the girls in the Minab school, whose death toll now exceeds 150, and the crimes of the attack on the Gandhi hospital, which one of our supporters who's been with us, one of our activists been with us since 2003, is an Iranian, and his mother lives just a few streets away from that hospital. So I spoke to him this morning. He was very, very concerned, and he sends his best wishes to this rally. He's looking after his wife, who's ill at the moment. So these are monstrous crimes, and we express our full support for Iran's right to self-defense by targeting those it deems complicit in these crimes. The Iranians were happy to, as has been pointed out, to engage in negotiations that the US insisted upon, and Iran defended his peaceful nuclear program for energy and demanded the lifting of US sanctions. These negotiations, underway since February 6, were then sabotaged and used as a criminal deception by Israel and the US with the illegal and unprovoked military attack by Iran on the early morning of February 28th. I think that's what these people were talking to me about over here. Some of them were Iranian. They were talking about the protests in Iran. But I think the important point about that has been mentioned for us is that these protests that took place recently in Iran were over the living conditions, but they were manipulated by Britain, US and Mossad, other intelligence agencies. There were even armed interventions in those demonstrations organised from outside. So then in US, there's various evidence that, open evidence that the US manipulated the currency in Iran to try and collapse the currency to cause further economic damage on top of the sanctions. So for us, the issue is these big powers like the US intervening. And we also condemn the British support for yet another illegal war alongside the US and Israel. The UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced yesterday that he accepted a US request to use its military bases to strike the missile depots in Iran. He agreed to the United States' use of British bases in Britain and abroad to bomb Iran, claiming that it was limited defensive purpose. But how can taking part in a war of aggression against Iran be defensive? It cannot be defensive. It is complicit and supportive of the same vicious criminal action that the US is taking against Iran. The Starmer also added he would send experts from the UK and Ukraine to the Gulf states to help the military shoot down Iranian drones. He tried to justify this by saying that Iran should not attack American bases. But these American bases are being used to attack Iran. And the Americans themselves claim that these American bases are their property and their sovereignty in those bases, like they are in Britain. No national laws operate in American bases. And if these American bases are attacking a sovereign country, then that country has a right to attack those bases. We call on you all to condemn Britain's involvement in this criminal bombing of Iran. We call on everyone to stand with the peoples of the world against this use of force to settle conflicts between nations. And we condemn the threats, saber-rattling and now military aggression of the US and Israel aimed at eliminating all opposition to their impunity in the Middle East. Their aim is to crush Iran and its government that has decided to defend the country's sovereignty. There are no US or other foreign bases in Iran, unlike the rest of the Middle East. It has been consistently anti-imperialist since the Iranian Revolution overthrew the regime of the Shah 47 years ago and stood on the principle of opposing US and Israeli crimes against the Palestinian people. It has acted in a principled manner to negotiate with the US to resolve differences. These are the facts. People should discuss the latest unconscionable crimes and openly stand with the facts. Condemn the US-Israeli war against Iran. Hands off Iran. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you, everybody, for coming along tonight. There's a couple of things I just want to say what I would like you to do. Obviously, if you haven't already, please join Stop the War Coalition. We stand against all of this UK and US imperialism and intervention in foreign wars. Secondly, please write to your MP and tell them that you oppose this war and you want them to oppose the war and that your voice be heard. Thirdly, there has been a call for a national demonstration in London on the 7th of March, so if you can get down to that, please do that. On the 28th of March, the Together demonstration against a national demonstration in London against racism and the far right. There's a coach going from Newcastle, so look out for details on that and get down to that if you possibly can. Thank you once again for coming tonight. Let's try a short chant, shall we? Let's try Trump and Starmer, no more war. 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 And we can always do this, can't we? Free, free! Palestine. 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 Thank you, everybody. Thanks for turning out at such short notice. Have a very safe journey home. Thank you very much again. Thank you.